everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Jess, I'm a fitness trainer, and today I'm going to talk to you about what rep range you should be working in if your goal is to tone. So the big question is high reps or low reps, what is better and what is toning? First, let's dive into what most people consider toning. What most people will consider a toned body is a body that is lean enough to show muscle definition without appearing too firm or too soft, I guess you could say. So essentially, you have to build enough muscle to actually show the definition, and you have to be lean enough to be able to see that muscle. So essentially, if your goal is to tone, you need to be training to build muscle. I wouldn't say also losing fat, because if you're just training to lose fat and you don't actually build the muscle, you still won't have that toned appearance because your muscle needs to be large enough to actually show that definition. Also, the more muscle you have, the easier it is to lean out your body fat percentage, and we'll get more into that later. So first, let's dive into high reps versus low reps. So what does high rep training do? When you're training with high reps, what you're doing is you're training muscle endurance. So what your rep range would look like if you're doing high reps is somewhere between 2 to 3 sets of maybe 15 to 20 or more reps with a given weight that you're able to lift that many reps, and you usually work until close to failure. So because you're lifting such high reps, you have to be choosing a low enough weight that you're able to do that. So that is why you're training muscle endurance. If you look on the other hand at high reps, you're probably working between 5 to 6 sets of 2 to 6 reps. Now this is very low reps, so in that case you would be lifting quite heavy weight, probably as much as you can handle for such a small amount of reps. And with that being said, you're really tapping into your strength. When you're training such low reps, you're probably also working close to failure. You might be working until you cannot lift anymore, or until you maybe have one more rep left in reserve. Which brings me to my next point. Let's talk quickly about RPE and RIR. What do these mean, and how can they help you gauge how heavy you should be lifting with the right amount of reps? RPE stands for rate of perceived exertion. So this means how hard do you feel that you are working within a given set. RIR stands for reps in reserve. How many reps do you have left until you completely cannot do even one more? I like to use both. It kind of depends on the situation. Going back to high reps, if you're training high rep, you're probably choosing a weight that has you working around 75% or less than the max you can do. And then you will lift that weight until failure or close to failure, because again, you're working your muscle endurance. If you're doing low reps, you're probably going to be choosing a weight that's 90% or higher of the max that you can lift, because you're lifting such few reps. So for example, if you're only doing 2 reps, you're definitely going to choose a weight that you can pretty much only do 2 reps with. So that's very heavy. When you're looking at RIR or reps in reserve, and you're rating an exercise, say an 8 out of 10 in terms of difficulty, that is the RPE scale, 8 out of 10. That means you would probably have 2 reps in reserve. If you're rating an exercise or a set 9 out of 10, that means you probably have 1 rep in reserve. And then 10 out of 10 would be 0, and you get the point. So those are the 2 ways to measure how hard you're working or how hard you should be working given the purpose of your training. So we've talked about high rep, which is muscle endurance, and we've talked about low rep, which is strength training. Where exactly does the hypertrophy or muscle growth or toning, I guess you could say, fall into place here? Muscle hypertrophy falls right in the middle. And while we know this is not the only thing that matters when it comes to toning or building muscles. So what needs to happen? There are essentially 3 things that need to happen for muscle growth, which is volume. You need to take into consideration your volume. So how many sets are you doing? How many reps? And then what weight are you using? So how much are you doing overall? The second thing is you need to have enough stress on muscles. So that will kind of fall under, that's like a subcategory of volume. How much weight are you using? And then the third thing that some science argues is that you need to actually damage the muscle tissue so that it can rebuild itself. So for now, let's focus on volume and stress on the muscle, because these are kind of the 2 most important things that you'll need to happen for muscle growth. Let's take a look at volume. What should your volume look at if you want the muscle to grow? You definitely want to be working high volume. Now, high volume doesn't mean high reps. There's a difference here. We want a larger number of sets, so anywhere from 4 to 10 sets, and then a middle range of reps, which is anywhere between 6 and 12. And then your RPE should fall somewhere between 80 and 90% of your max. So not quite your max, but definitely challenging enough that probably only have 2 reps in reserve by the end of your set. So that should kind of help you choose what weight you should be working at, because there's no recommended weight. Everybody will be different. That's why we use things like RPE, RIR, and then a variety of sets and reps. So now we've determined that for the muscle to grow, we need high volume and high stress. And lastly, you want to make sure you're hitting whatever muscle you want to grow a minimum of 3 times a week. This is what's needed to actually build the muscle, put enough stress on it, damage the muscle tissue, and actually demand your body to grow that muscle. Because if you're training any less than that for the muscle group that you want to grow, you're not putting enough demand on the tissue for it to actually grow, because muscle tissue is very metabolically expensive. And as humans, we're designed for survival. So if we don't need to build muscle, we're not going to. So since this video is mostly focusing on high reps versus low reps and the rep range you should be working in to build muscle, I don't want to go too much into all the other aspects that come into play when you're looking to tone, but let's cover the basics. So if your goal is to tone, we've already covered that you need to build muscle, but what else has to be done outside of the gym for you to see this progress? As most of you know, diet plays a huge role in your progress in the gym. And when it comes to muscle growth, most science will say that you need to be in a surplus, a calorie surplus, so consuming more energy than you burn in order to grow muscle. And while that's mostly true, at most training levels, you can recomposition the body while eating at a maintenance, as long as you are training properly in the gym and you're getting adequate amounts of protein. Now, some people will argue if you're a very beginner, you can potentially put on a little bit of muscle while eating at a deficit. So if you've never strength trained before, you're just starting to get into it, but you're eating at a deficit to lose weight, then chances are in your first couple months of training, you might see a little spike in muscle growth just because it's new and you're adapting to it, but you will plateau at a certain point, and then you will need to eat more at a maintenance or a surplus. And this is why people usually do like a bulk and a cut when they want to put on muscle and then lose fat, because it's more guaranteed. If you're eating at a surplus, you'll put on the muscle quicker, and then you can maintain that while cutting back the calories to then lose the body fat. But that's a whole other video, whole other topic. So let's say for argument's sake, you've got a good strength base, you've got a really good muscular base, and you're not looking to gain any substantial amount of muscle. You just want like a slight recomposition of the body, and eating at a maintenance might work for you. Now that's only given you're, again, training properly in the gym and you're getting adequate protein. So there's a lot of contradiction in science of how much protein you actually need, but generally across the board, what's proven to work best is approximately 1 gram of protein per pound of goal body weight. That is kind of like approximately what you would want to hit while eating at a maintenance if you're just looking for recomposition of the body. One last point, if your goal is recomposition of the body, given you're eating at a maintenance, you're eating approximately 1 gram of protein per pound of goal body weight, is you want to make sure you're keeping up your NEAT, so your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Big word. What does that mean? This just means how much are you moving throughout your day that's not exercise related. So fidgeting, walking around the house, just things that you're doing to move your body that aren't working out. So something to keep your NEAT up, which will help with burning more calories and recomposition of the body, is walking or getting daily steps in. So aim for 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day. That seems to be like a very appropriate amount of movement outside of your workouts to help with recomposition of the body. So working on keeping your NEAT up, along with your strength training and eating at a maintenance, getting enough protein. So this is not the be all and end all way to grow your muscle or to tone, but this would be considered one of the more efficient ways for the general population whose fitness goals are general well-being or aesthetic-based goals. So I hope this really cleared up what kind of rep range you should be working in and the effort you should be putting in the gym if your goal is to tone or build muscle. But I know this is a lot of information, so if you do have questions or anything to add to the video, make sure you drop a comment below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more fitness content, and I'll see you in the next one.